What's up, A to Z Sports Titan Game Day Live? A little bit of a different pregame show this morning. I am Austin Stanley in Columbus, Ohio, still where it is very cold, and feeling okay after watching the playoff game last night between the Tennessee Volunteers and the Ohio State Buckeyes. That was a massive blowout by Buckeyes, but I was not supposed to be on the show this morning or today, but Sam is sick and cannot talk. So I'm going to fill in here for a second on this pregame show, joined with Easton Freeze back home in Nashville. Going to have a good conversation about what this Titans team has a chance to prove in the post Will Levis era after he was benched earlier this past week. Then the head coach talking a lot about the toughness of his team, with that being a big topic of conversation this past week as well. So, Easton, welcome on in here. Before we officially get going, tell the people what they got to do.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. I hope everybody had a good day yesterday watching some college football blowouts. Austin, it looks like you're somewhere far more tropical than Columbus, Ohio, with your current setup. But glad that you could join me here. So hope Sam is starting to feel better. Being sick is one thing. Not being able to talk, another thing, kind of important in our line of work. So no worries. We'll hold it down here. I'll hold it down here from Nashville. And we need you guys to like the show this morning. Help us out. Hit that like button. Throw us a like on Facebook. Throw us a like on YouTube. It's the easiest way that you can help us share the show before we get rolling with Titans Colts. A little pregame show action for you as soon as you hit that like button. All right, let's get after it, Austin.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcoming the Titan Game Day Live. This is the pregame show. I want to give a great shout out to our sponsors that make this happen all season long. That is X Golf Nashville and in Murfreesboro. It's very cold outside, especially here. I'm sure it's still cold in Nashville, but playxgolf.com is where to go, where golf season never ends. And you get a fantastic sports bar experience with your indoor golf at playxgolf.com. BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Use our bonus code ATOZ Sports. You get up to $1,500 back at bonus bets if your first bet misses. And TDOT help them keep Tennessee beautiful and join their campaign to end littering across our states at nobodytrashestennessee.com. So, Easton, we are, 5 days removed from the benching of Will Levis. And so there's a lot of different prove it opportunities here for the Titans against the Colts. And this is interesting because the first time we had these two teams play each other, it was Joe Flacco versus coming back from still injured Will Levis. Now it is a Mason Rudolph-led Titans team going to Anthony Richardson and the Colts and Indy. Very different. So how do you feel about the quarterback matchup on this one compared to the first between the two AFC South teams?
Yeah, it's different quarterbacks. And our buddy Nick Suss in the Tennessean has pointed this out that Anthony Richardson and Will Levis have never played each other. And it looks like they never will play each other, which is crazy considering that they
Even
were
in college.
I mean, in the NFL. I don't know if they,
okay.
I'm guessing they probably played in college, but they never played each other. Like they were drafted into the same division in the same draft class as two of the top four quarterbacks in that class in the first 33 picks. So for them to not ever actually play each other is insane. And he pointed out that this also happened with who was it? Was it Locker? And did the Jags have was it Locker and Bortles or something? The Titans and the Jags.
Probably Locker and Gabbert. I would
Gabbert, yes, that's what it was.
Same draft
they
era.
never played each other either, and they came from the same draft. So,
interesting.
Two quarterbacks that get drafted in the AFC South, just not ever playing each other. Very different looking game we should get from a shuffling of the quarterback decks here because Mason Rudolph is going to obviously bring the Titans a different style of play. Brian Callahan talking about that this week, how they're just very different quarterbacks. You and I have talked about how if you could marry Mason Rudolph's mind with Will Levis's body, you'd have yourself a pretty darn good quarterback because Mason seems to see the field very well. His process is significantly better than Will's is right now, unfortunately. He just doesn't have the physical prowess that Will does. He's not the mover on his feet. He does not have the arm strength. So it's going to look, I think, maybe similar to what we saw in the final quarter and a half last week against the Bengals. Maybe not airing it out as much because obviously that was a serious trailing game script. But I think on the Titans side of the ball, it's going to be completion city. And then for the Colts, folks that have watched Anthony Richardson this year, they know what the Anthony Richardson experience is. You're going to get 30 passes. 15 of them will be complete. And one or two of them will be unbelievable, incredible things you never see from anybody in the NFL. And then a bunch of the incompletions are going to be balls that you feel like you could have thrown more accurately. So that's what it's going to be for this team. I think that on the Colts side of the ball, Anthony Richardson, obviously him being in, you look at the advanced metrics. The number one thing he does for them, honestly, is not be a quarterback, but just what he does for their run game, his presence in the game changes a lot for the way that the Colts makeup looks, and you get big runs broken off by their backs, like you saw last week before they apparently dropped them before they get into the end zone. So, that's what I think you're going to see a lot of today from the Titans and the Colts. Very different styles of play because of very different styles of quarterback, and it should make for a pretty interesting game.
Yeah, it should. And so for the Titans, why do they bench Will Levis? Like, why do they move on from him? We've talked about that basically the entire week. But I think part of it is for Brian Callahan to show off what he wants his offense to look like and try to get some continuity or some type of rhythm and momentum going, because there's guys on this offense that are going to be here next year guaranteed, that are under contract, and Tony Pollard is one of them. What do you expect to see from the Titans running back situation today? Because I know Tony's been banged up quite a bit over the last month and a half.
Yeah, I reported last night on Twitter right before the Titans and the Buckeyes got going that the 4 questionable players in this game, 2 of them would be good to go, 2 would be game time decisions, the biggest of which, Tony Pollard. Once again, another week of him not practicing, questionable coming into this game with an ankle, but I reported last night that he would be good to go. He is good to go. He was good to go last week too, though, and got banged up early, and then we saw a lot of Tajay Spears. I do think it'll be a pretty healthy mix no matter what, even if he is good to go for the entire game and doesn't re-aggravate anything. So, I think he'll carry the bulk of the rushing reps. And, Tajay Spears last week got 7 targets for nearly 90 yards in the passing game with Mason Rudolph at the helm. I think you'll see them try to utilize him more because he's somebody that showed you get him in space on some really easy dump offs, and he's going to make some magic for you every once in a while. So I think it'll be a healthy split from them. And then just to kind of round up that report there, the 2 linebackers that were questionable, Kenneth Murray, he's going to be good to go. It sounds like last night he was a game time decision in my report, but it sounds like this morning he is going to be all right to start. And then Otis Reese, who aggravated his ankle in practice this week, was good to go last night. Nick Folk is the one that did not make the cut of those 4. He's down for today. So we've got an old friend in Braden Narvison, if you remember him from the preseason, the Narv dog, the Narv wall hitting what was like a 60-yard field goal there in the
59
preseason.
maybe.
Yeah, a crazy long field goal that obviously didn't matter because in the preseason, but we had that moment where everyone was convinced, hey, maybe they should keep Narvison instead of Folk. And then he goes to Green Bay and you see what happens. But he's back. So the Titans, by the way, added a year to his contract. I don't know if that kind of flew under the radar this week. They signed him for next year, too, this week. So get used to Narwhal because he's going to be around for you for a little bit.
Maybe. Well, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But
at least through the summer, he'll be here.
So we'll see what the offense looks like with Mason Rudolph starting a few games in the middle of the season. You saw efficiency. You saw Calvin Ridley's breakout performance really came in Detroit with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. And they were able to really put some things together. They've won 2 games with Mason Rudolph playing the most snaps on offense between the 2 quarterbacks, he and Will Levis. So we'll find out what that offense looks like. But I think the bigger conversation, I don't know, which was a bigger conversation this past week? Was it the benching of Will Levis, or was it what Brian Callahan did on Wednesday, talking about how or answering the question about people out there thinking that his team is soft? Which was the bigger storyline in your opinion?
I mean, well, only one of those topics managed to get first take to talk about the 2024 Tennessee Titans in December, which should be an impossible thing to do. And it was not my intention at all, but it's just one of those things. I mean, you've been doing this long enough, Austin. It's always the things you don't expect that end up blowing up nationally.
Correct.
And so that ended up, I think the reason that became a bigger narrative was just because we all of us that watched the last 2 games of Will Levis knew what needed to be done, knew where this was headed. The announcement really, maybe the timing was a little bit earlier than we expected, but was not a surprise to anybody, I don't think. So, I think the soft narrative won out just because of the national backlash to that. And I am genuinely excited to see how the Titans come out in this game because, this was on First Take. It was on Rich Eisen. It was on FS1 show. Like, it was on all the things that are on the televisions in the Titans facility. It was all over social media. like the players got wind of this. I'd imagine if I was the coaching staff, I would have used it. I mean, you're being handed into your lap bulletin board material from a press conference. Yeah. I would mention that, like, hey, some folks think you're soft out there. Maybe take that into account as you're playing this game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out in this game and punch the Colts in the mouth, to be honest with you. I think that, these are professionals and their motivation is consistent. It's not like college where they get up and down, but they're still people, man. And I don't think they take kindly to the idea that this is a soft football team. The past month or so, they've been hearing it a little bit after the Commanders game, a little bit this week. Like, I think that they'll come out swinging, and we'll see if that, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. But I do think it'll be an aggressive game from the Titans.
Well, let's talk about that and the fact about the X factor. So, what will be the Titans' X factor today in this game versus the Colts? So, what will be the Titans' X factor today versus the Colts? And I do think this is going to be a really interesting conversation here about the soft aspect as well. So we'll do that here in a second. But first, our pregame show is presented by our friends at X Golf Nashville, the home of indoor golf in Middle Tennessee. It is not golf season outside, but at X Golf, it's always golf season. They have the best golf simulator on the market today. It's phenomenal. It really is. Sam and I went over there last year around this time, and checked it out, played a little long drive contest. I won. By the way, with multiple 300-yard drives down the center. Sam was just shotgun spraying that thing all over the fairway, and mostly in the rough. But playxgolf.com is where to go. They have 2 locations in the Nashville area, in Nashville, a little west of town, and also in Murfreesboro. Great spot to watch all of the hopefully better playoff football for the college football playoffs moving forward, a bowl season and pro football throughout this holiday season. You have friends and family in town, need something to do. X Golf is where to go. Playxgolf.com in Nashville and in Murfreesboro. Yes, I'm here from Columbus. As Jake says, sounds like Austin's trying to still warm up the vocal cords from last night. It was a very cold situation in the shoe. It was an ugly game from the get-go. And so, look, had fun. Had fun. Interesting experience watching the Vols getting their tails whipped by Ohio State. So, we'll talk more about that maybe later on. But X Golf X Factor, what are you seeing here from the chat of X Golf X Factor for the Titans today? And then we can talk about the soft factor and how that plays a part of this.
Amnesia says turnovers are his X factor. I'm good. Love and Joy says Ridley and Chig are the guys he's looking at. Dad to the Bone says NWI, who he has his eyes on. Line play and penalties from Darren. Edge rushers from Demario. So we're all over the board here. Let's see. Tajay Spears, another big week from him is what Roberto wants to see. Tony Pollard, banged up with the ankle, but still running strong. Matt wants to see him have a big day. Darius says it's Chig. Mason seems to like Chig. I can't disagree with that. Ethan says MPF holding up on that right side of the offensive line. Always a big deal for the Titans. Mason Rudolph says Deborah, just the guy that's going to be running the offense. Can he play well? Miro says Pollard for fantasy purposes. It is the fantasy playoffs. So if you are in your fantasy playoffs today, best of luck to you. Austin, my X factor in this game is going to essentially be what Deborah said here. It's Mason Rudolph, but it's Mason Rudolph's process. And the thing that I keep thinking about and why I think that they ultimately made this decision to go to Rudolph this week is because if I'm in the coaching staff, I'm thinking back to the past couple of weeks. And Austin, you and I can think back to the shows we did some tape study on the past couple of weeks where every game you can point out some opportunities that are there to be had that the Titans should be capitalizing on. And it's not always the quarterback's fault, but sometimes it is the quarterback's fault. And more often than not, I'd say it is the quarterback's fault, whether it's them not being able to create the time that they need, them not just seeing the guy that they're supposed to see, them not going through their reads in the correct order. That's something that Mason Rudolph should be able to do. And I think that the coaching staff wants to see, hey, we're scheming these things up. We are creating opportunities. That is as far as we can take this. We cannot take the opportunities for the players. So let's see if Mason can take those opportunities. And in the past couple of weeks, man, we've seen obviously Ridley this back half of the season. He's come on. He's a guy that you get the ball into his hands. Special things tend to happen. NWI, we know what the deal is with him. The past 2 weeks, he's kind of been quieter because of the Will Levis experience, I think, is a big part of that. but he's somebody that you can rely on in some big spots. We saw Chig last week, what you can do with him if you get him in space. He's a ton of fun. You see Tajay Spears, somebody you get in space. Like you've got
Yeah.
these skill players that if you just get the ball into their hands, you can rely on them to do some things for you on offense. And that's what the coaching staff wants to see. And that's what they think they can get from Mason Rudolph today. So that's my X factor is Mason Rudolph, just sound process and get the ball into the hands of your skill players.
Yeah, and this isn't my X factor, but just continuing off of your point is that first half, really the first like quarter at Buffalo against the Bills, when Mason Rudolph was the quarterback, like, oh, there's like some kind of a little like timing and creativity and rhythm, and there looked like it felt like a purpose to
Right.
the offense. And with Rudolph in there, with the experience that he has, and so I think that's a big one because it's Rudolph's process, and how does that represent Brian Callahan? And I
Right.
think that's the big deal over the next 3 games, including today. My X factor is going to be on the defensive side. Can they respond to getting punched in the mouth? Because we've seen this defense make plays at times. We've seen them also get run out of the building at times. And so with Jeffrey Simmons being the leader there, he's relatively healthy at this point in the season for the first time in what seems like many years for Jeff to be, not nurturing some type of significant injury in his lower body, but he's out there and ready to make some plays. And with Anthony Richardson, it's how can you try to make things confusing for him? And so I want to see this defense stay consistent and make some plays and not just get, just worn down throughout the game and just look miserable at the tail end of it, like they did last week against Cincinnati, like they did 3 weeks ago against the Commanders, where the defense gave them no shot. I
Yep.
want to see a competitive game. Damn it! Like I was in the shoe
You
yesterday,
just
last
watched a
night.
team's defense give them no chance, didn't you?
I mean, I
Yeah.
just saw like the longest first quarter in the history of football, and it was 21-0. I'm like, how did that happen?
Oh man.
And so, yeah, I want to see a competitive game because, again, I want to see Brian Callahan now call plays in higher leverage moments. It
Mm-hmm.
all comes, I'm evaluating between the score, right? I'm not worried about the scoreboard. I'm not worried about the score at the end of the game or the win or the loss. They need to lose this game. But I just want to see the process play out in a tight game and not just have Mason Rudolph and Brian Callahan calling up plays to gain a bunch of yards in a loss by multiple scores because it was out of hand early.
Right. Right. I think that is fair. The thing that we may be talking more about later is what you mentioned there, just kind of in passing. The Titans need to lose this game. Coaches don't think that. Players don't think that. Obviously, we all think that because we see the long-term future of this franchise. But, there is a balance here between, culture building, and especially if you're sticking by your coach, the morale of a team that is going to largely still be here next year. There'll be some moving pieces, but some of these foundational pieces will be here. They're trying to build something. And so they're trying to win for obvious reasons. Fans are wanting them to lose for obvious reasons. Something has to give, and somebody will be upset at the end of the day. So we'll see
Yeah.
just who that might be.
Yeah. And by the way, people saying, is that my audio or is that my voice? I'm using my AirPods in the Airbnb. My
Probably
voice
both.
probably isn't awesome
Right.
because I was in
Better
the
than
cold.
Sam's.
Yes, my voice is better than Sam's, which is why you see me because Sam is sick. I called him earlier and it was like if you don't have a voice, it's what you expect.
I
He
can't do the
sounded like
show.
it was not good. He was like, okay, I was like, all right, stop talking now and go get something figured out. So that is why I'm on here from Columbus with this tree behind me in this jungle Airbnb that I have in the middle of the tundra up here in Columbus, Ohio. So, all right, let's go ahead and flip the script and get to our predictions and our bets. So people want us to get to our bets
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the show. So we'll do that. We'll give you our bets. I've got one that I think is just take it straight to the bank right now,
Okay.
but we'll get to that in our predictions. But first, I want to tell you guys about BetMGM. You can use our bonus code ATOZ Sports. You get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. So make sure you download that BetMGM app. They've also got tokens and odd boosts. I used a free bet yesterday, a bonus bet yesterday on the Vols money line. Didn't work out, but it didn't lose me anything either.
That's right.
But you know what I did? I took all 4 of the favorites over the first weekend of the playoff, and I parlayed them together, and I used that, and I actually won that money. So
Mhm.
everything worked out there in the long run for me on my BetMGM app. You can use the code ATOZ Sports up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Easton, do you want to start with your bets? I have one.
Okay, I have more than that. Here are
Okay.
my bets. Listen, folks, we're going back to the NWI. Well, do not let the last 2 weeks dissuade you.
Yep.
This run with NWI began with the Mason Rudolph experience, and I don't think last 2 weeks are a reflection of him so much as it has been a reflection on the passing game. As Cap says, NWI anytime touchdown plus 375. So we're
Yeah.
back on that. I even sprinkled a little NWI first touchdown just because it's like plus 2,000. It's an insane number.
Oh,
Now, here are the individual props that you can place one at a time, or you can place them as a parlay. I've got them placed individually and as a parlay, so maybe do that as well. I'm taking Tony Pollard under 15 and a half, if 15 and a half rushing attempts, considering his ankle, considering the fact that like last week, he may just not finish the game, and also
yeah.
considering the fact that the Titans may not be playing from a lead for most of this game.
I
I
like
like
that.
that. Like that number. I like Mason Rudolph over 20 and a half passing completions in every game he has played this year, besides the Miami game where they did not have to pass the ball at all because they killed them. He has surpassed that. So I think that one is an easy one today, over 20 and a half completions for Mason. I've got Calvin Ridley over 50 yards, just simple. I think that every game besides the last two, which again, we've talked about, he has surpassed that since he's come on midseason. So I
Mhm.
think that'll be an easy one. It can be one catch today, frankly. Chigakonkwo, over 2.5 receptions. He's done that every game in the past month. Last week, he had 8 and crushed that number. So I
In
think big
eight?
over.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
he had
crazy.
8 receptions last week. Over 2.5 is all you need today from him. And then Tajay Spears, over 11.5 receiving yards. I think after he went for nearly 90 last week, the Titans will want to get him involved. And all that takes is 1 or 2 catches from him to surpass that number. So I've parlayed those all together. That's around plus 1,000 odds for you. But I'd place
My
them
goodness.
individually as well because I think they all can hit.
That's a big parlay there, but I do like all of them individually. I don't know if they're all going to hit. You could have added
You
one
never know.
more. Josh Wiley over 10 and a half receiving yards
Okay.
with
That also
Mason
can be
Rudolph
one
playing.
catch. Yeah.
That's going to happen. Like, take
Okay.
that to the bank.
Okay.
Josh Wiley and Mason Rudolph, they create plays together. Like that. I'm all in. Anytime Mason Rudolph is playing in the game, Josh Wiley is going to get more targets than he would otherwise. I
Okay.
just feel like they have a good connection there, even though he and Will Levis are like best friends outside of the game. But for
Golfing
whatever
buddies.
reason, Levis to Wiley hasn't happened as much as Rudolph to Wiley, it feels like. So I'm taking Josh Wiley over 10 and a half
All
receiving
righty.
yards. All right. Prediction time. Scores. Give us your scores. There's already some scores in the chat, so I'll just go ahead and read those off as we got about just 5-6 minutes before the game gets going. Real quick, Zoe does say Rudolph with 1+ passing touchdown. I think that's solid. Gabriel says 20-27, the Colts win. Amnesia says 16-14, Colts. Then we've got 9-6 Colts,
Oh, God,
a different
please don't do that.
Gabriel. Mike
You're
just
telling me
says
Braden
40
Narvison
to
hits 3
0.
field goals in this game? No shot, buddy.
There's no way. That would definitely be a touchdown and a safety in that situation. All right, more coming in here. 24-10 Titans from Jordan. Guy says 24-13 Horses. Jake 20-10 Colts. Dylan Colts 24-13. Big one from Orlando 48-17 Colts. Not a lot of Titans predictions. I see Ryan comes in here with 21-16 Titans. And Matt 27-24 Titans. Easton, what's your prediction here?
Let's see the total. Vegas thinks it's going to be about 43. I think Titans win 20-17. And I'm not even necessarily rooting for it. I just feel a little spoiler here. Spoiler in terms of making fans mad. I think that this team's going to be up for it. I think that the Mason Rudolph experience will enable the offense to work a lot better than it has the past 2 weeks. So while I won't necessarily be super stoked, I'll be lukewarm if it happens. If they win, I'll also be happy if they lose. Again, for me, the wins and losses, I really don't care. I care about what we see on the field. But if I had to pick today, give me Titans 2017.
20-17. Man, this is weird because I don't know how many points I expect the Colts to score.
You never know with Anthony. You never know.
And you never know with the Titans defense either.
That's right.
I feel more confident in the Titans scoring points today, like you do. but I feel like they're just going to stall out. There's probably going to be a missed field goal from Norvington.
I think you can take that one to the bank. Yeah, I wish you could bet on that.
I'm going to say 20-14 Colts win.
Okay. All right.
20-14. That's my pick.
Okay. So we're both taking the under. That's for sure.
Yeah. I feel good about that one. All right. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if it's a more competitive game than last night. I don't want to spend more. We could talk a few minutes about the experience last night. I'll just say this. The Ohio State fans that we were next to, they were cool.
You found the only cool Ohio State fans? That's crazy. That's honestly impressive.
The three guys directly behind us were cool. We had a good experience.
Okay. Well, I'm glad.
We did leave early.
Was it at the 35-point mark or was it before then?
It was 42.
Okay, so you made it past the 35. All right. Mm-hmm. Longer than most, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a tough day for the SEC online. It was a tough day. The Big Ten. I've noticed how Big Ten fans have gotten real confident talking big smack after
the other thing,
one good year, one really dominant year. They don't want to crack the history books, but they've had a great year. For Big Ten probably has the best three teams in the nation, so it's big for them.
One thing, like big Ohio State fans constantly chanting SEC. It's like, I don't care about that. Like I don't chant SEC. Like that's the funniest thing is I don't care about that.
I know you don't, but it does feel at times like the conference rivalry is almost bigger than individual team loyalty at this point.
No, you know what I mean?
Which is silly to me. It's very funny.
I didn't want Alabama in the playoff.
I know you did.
Right?
But don't you feel what I feel? That like some people care so much about the reputation of their conference, maybe even more than their own team.
For sure. Nah, I mean Sam does because his team's
Illinois. Even have a team? Yeah, I was about to say
Illinois. Yeah.
Well, that's every SEC fan that is not a fan of like the two or three awesome teams. If you're a Missouri fan, I feel like you might care a little bit more about the reputation of the SEC than your own team.
like Sam tweeting, Big Ten over SEC as an Illinois guy. Like, dude, you don't want Ohio State to win a national championship.
You don't want to read his texts last night. He was admittedly a couple IPAs deep, he said, and he was tempted to send some things on Twitter he probably shouldn't have. And I'm glad that he didn't. I advised against that. But he was having a big Big Ten day for Captain Big Ten over there. I'm sure you'll hear about it this week if he can speak.
Yeah,
that's the irony is God has taken his voice so that he cannot talk smack.
Maybe it's a good week for Sam to lose his voice. I hope he's like, just can't talk. It's fine with me. All right, that's it for us on this pregame show. Titans and Colts coming up. Easton, you'll have everybody for halftime and postgame. Make sure that you guys hit that like button, like the show. If you haven't liked the show, please do that for us. Shout out once again to our sponsors, XGolf, playxgolf.com, BetMGM, and T-Dot with NobodyTrashedTennessee.com. We'll catch you guys later on. Appreciate it as always. Enjoy the first half, and Easton will see you guys later. Thanks.